Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, make sure you go ahead and check out the Poketown store. You can get a nice 5% discount on your orders using the code OmniPoke. For today's video, we are going to be looking at the VMAX Rising set. Now, this has actually been revealed for a little bit of time, but the Rebellious Clash set has recently been revealed, and I want to upload that video tomorrow. And I realized that I hadn't done the VMAX Rising first impressions just yet. So that's what we're going to go over today, knowing that we'll also have a look at Rebellious Clash as well. So, as always, we're going to jump down to the trainers at the bottom, and then we'll go through all the interesting Pokemon. I've given it a quick scan, but we're going to have to reread a lot of things, so I may quickly be briefly reading something, then saying it's bad and moving on, but we'll take our time on all the trainer cards and also the highlight Pokemon. So, we will start off with Full Bucket. You are able to search your deck for 2 water energy, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So this is a Professor's Letter for exactly the blue stuff. And as we know, Frosmoth is a card, and it wants to rain a bunch of energies into play. I think the Full Bucket is definitely a card that makes that archetype a lot less combo-based, a lot more reasonable, a lot faster. So I think realistically this bucket is going to be excellent for Frosmoth. We'll have to wait and see if there are any better water-type attackers than we currently have. Is this enough to push Lapras? Possibly. We've seen some like more turbo-based builds out there that have heavy Dedenne. At the moment it's playing a Feveriddian and like 14 energies and then a bunch of retrievals and stuff. Having a combination of bucket and retrieval, or just cutting those 4 retrievals and just playing 4 bucket and then like 1 or 2 fishermen for the back end instead, sort of flipping the deck on its head really, and saying that you can just thin the deck way faster with the buckets and the fishermen's can provide the late game option. I think that could really be something interesting worth exploring. Lapras has a whole heap of other issues that it has to conquer, like the middle matchups, the Pika-ROM, stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you're still trying to set up 2 stage 2s, but this card is super good for any ongoing Frosmoth deck. Not necessarily just Lapras either, so yeah. Burning Scarf is a tool card that says if the fire Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an opponent's attack, the attacking Pokemon is now burned. So it's similar to like a Spell Tag type effect, or like a Dragon Talon type effect. These effects aren't really that great. Obviously Spell Tag is, but it's way better of an effect than just putting burn on the opponent's active. I don't think Fire decks are necessarily yearning for this. Basically it's like Magcargo and Ability Zard, which are the 2 successful Fire decks at the moment. And neither of these archetypes would want such a passive tool. It's just not fast enough. It doesn't fit the bill for fire at the moment. I believe this has synergy with like an Arcanine later on though, so at the moment this tool won't go in anything but that random Arcanine shenanigans deck. Sonya, I've actually profiled already in the full set review for Sword and Shield because I wasn't sure if she was going in or not. Turns out we have to wait on her, but from what we've seen so far at least, we've only had 1 tournament so far in the new Sword and Shield meta where the rules have changed for supporters, but these sorts of supporters really are not thriving at all. And I don't see... Well, she's competitive compared to things like Oak and Elm, but I don't see her being like that much better that we will start choosing to go second just to be able to use Sonya, so I imagine she's not going to be useful. We get a reprint of Skylar. You get to search your deck for a trainer, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Again, I think this is hurt by the rule changes quite a lot. Skylar was rarely a 4-of. I remember it being a 4-of in some like rare candy eras with like old Blastoise and stuff, but Skylar could also get things like Beach to end up being like a fake draw card. So I think although people are quite fond of Skylar and they'll hark back to eras where you would have played Skylar, I don't think in a meta that's this fast it's that mandatory. We have great supporters right now in Prof Research, Marnie, and the Tag Call package is, although the supporters themselves aren't that strong, because you have the accessibility to them at the right times, they just end up going into a bunch of decks. So I don't really see a huge need for Skylar. The only real style effect that we see like this at the moment being successful is Volkner, and that's because Volkner also gets you that extra value of the lightning energy. Obviously Skylar can also get you stadiums and whatnot, but Volkner gets around it by just adding in a stadium nav anyway. And it's not too big of an issue to like also find supporters, because if you're doing that with a Skylar, you're already super behind. So yeah, I don't foresee this card seeing like a huge amount of play. Maybe some niche like 1 or 2 of copies in very specific decks that want to be combo based. We have Milo, which allows you to discard up to 2 cards from your hand, then draw twice as many as the cards you discarded. So it's like a more flexible Sophocles or a worse Felicity's Drawing if you've been around long enough. So it's technically better than Sophocles because you have the option to just do a trade effect, or a make-do effect, I guess, in 2020. So yeah, not great at all, really. It's not a powerful draw. We have Turfield, which is a fantastic stadium, really. Once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a grass evolution, reveal it and put it into their hand. Then that player shuffles their deck. So we've seen an effect like this before in Brooklet Hill that helped out fighting and water Pokemon for basics. Finding evolutions is arguably better and arguably worse, right? It's worse for like your opening hand synergies, turn 1 and 2. It's still probably not great for you. Because although it's deck thinning, it's not really getting your opening board setup going, which isn't ideal. Grass actually has really good ball search outs, though, for the early game. They already have a bunch of net balls, and they can now play quick ball as well, of course. So the early game is covered for Grass already, specifically with the support that we have in the game. So Turfield will not be seen in the same light as something like a Brooklet in any way. What's weird is the main way that we're trying to get Grass Evolutions into play at the moment is cheating them out anyway with Rowegg. And we haven't really seen any other Grass Evolutions be that successful. Oops. But with this Turfield, maybe we could go back to things like Rillaboom Rayquaza, something like that, where you have much more consistent means at getting that Candy Stage 2 off, or the Rillaboom VMAX that we'll get onto later that could potentially be a heavy hitter. So yeah, I think this is basically a card built for the Rillaboom deck, basically, right? The Boom town, whatever you're going to call it, you know. I don't see that archetype being hugely successful, just from what I'm seeing so far, and the fact that Welder is still dominating the format, even with the rule changes. So Turfield is niche, narrow right now, but its effect is going to be pretty strong in grass decks. Like, this is basically an Evo Incense with upside for grass decks. That's just how you have to see it. Evo Incense isn't being played in like a lot of decks at all, really. It's just like decks that play Rosa and a handful of others. Like Mill plays a couple Incense just to increase the outs. So this isn't actually like that insane. It's just Evo Incense that can sometimes have upside, which isn't actually that good. Especially if I'm not expecting grass to be that good. So I don't know, I've kind of flip-flopped on it. Alright. Training Court. Once during each player's turn, that player may choose a basic energy from their discard pile, reveal it, and put it into their hand. So it's similar to a Viridian style effect. Viridian seems stronger just instinctively right now, because having extra discard synergy is usually better for this kind of stuff. But the Training Court also seems like it could be reasonable. If you don't want to play things like Ornery Rod, but you're worried about running out of energy cards or something like that, and you just want to have a counter stadium, something like Training Court could be fine. Just making sure you don't drop a manual attachment each turn. It's a reasonable card. I don't think it's ever going to be like game-breakingly strong. It's oh man, what's the stadium called? Is it Power Tree? I can't remember. I think it's Power Tree, the old stadium that did this effect. So yeah, we've had an effect like this before. It seemed like narrow play. This is just like decent for making sure you don't drop attachments, and again having some minor upside for bouncing stadiums. We have Twin Energy, which is basically fair DCE. So it provides 2 colorless energy, but only to non-V, non-GX Pokemon. I had a quick scout on PTCGO to see what good synergies we had currently in the format for this card. Things I could find were actually quite wacky and weird. Things like Wheezing that we've seen, the spread Wheezing. The Gallade that we've seen from Cosmic Eclipse that can do 120 for the 2 colorless, and you can move those 2 colorless around, which is actually pretty interesting because you can be a psychic and fighting type. That's decent typing, and you could probably get away with just playing like just the 4 twin energies and then like a couple 3 CEs. So that could be pretty cool. There's also the Thwompful Steelix, which I might want to try out. Essentially, it's just making those 3 Cs finally have like a partner again, so you can actually have like 8 copies of special energy, and that can be your entire energy package. There's also things like what's it called, tool drop. So yeah, some kind of niche stuff that doesn't seem that great. We don't have an insane number of DC attackers in the game right now. There's also that Guzzlord thing where you can Guzzlord and attach the twin energy plus 1 B string, and you can start spamming the Guzzlord. I think there's been a random deck from Japan that's had that, but I don't know how good that actually is. All right, we'll jump up to the Pokemon now. So we start off with the Caterpie line. This guy can evolve the first time you play it, as can the Metapod, so you can cheat out Butterfree pretty easily. Do we have any other Butterfrees in the format that are that relevant? I don't think we do. This guy can burn, poison, and confuse. So is this the same attack as Celosaur? Sounds like Celosaur had those 3 statuses, right? This time it's for 1 energy, but for the cost of being a stage 2. Yeah, not great. And Cutting Wind is just terrible. So great evolutions, but again, Butterfree always falls short of the mark. We have a Shuckle that allows you to shuffle 5 basic energies back into your deck. That's never going to come in. We have an Abomasnow, which, yeah, does nothing. We have a Grubbin. All right, we have our first V Pokemon here. So we have a Rillaboom V. Search your deck for up to 2 grass basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So we've already seen the Turnfield or whatever it is, Turfield Court or whatever. I can't remember what the stadium is. But it seems to be decent when you have an attacker in Rillaboom V that also has this decent consistency option for turn 1 when you're going seconds. Seems like okay, because you don't have to worry about, maybe you don't even play like a huge amount of Ball Search in this deck. You know, I was saying how you have, well, Grass Pokemon has great options. Now you don't even need to worry about that. If you're the player going second, you can prioritize setting your hand up for turn 2 in a different way. You don't need to prioritize finding Ball Search cards. You can try and find things like the Turfield or the Candy for turn 2, while you know you can just Forest Feast and get your Grookey's down turn 1. Then you have Woodhammer. You do 220 and 30 to yourself for 4. Not very efficient and not that great either. But we do have a VMAX here. 330 hit points is big. You're weak to fire. but Max Barrage is actually a pretty dangerous attack. The artwork's sick on this as well. You do 130, and you can discard up to 3 grass from this Pokemon, and you do 50 more for each energy you discarded in this way. I like the flexibility that we got going on here. So, obviously, if you discard all 4, you're doing, what, 330, right? Oh, no, it's only up to 3. Yeah, so you cap out at 280. Obviously, a good number against tag teams. You're not quite able to reach on VMAXs, even with modifiers. But, yeah, 280 is a good number. I'm skeptical when you're a 3-prizer weak to fire that also requires a stage 1 and a stage 2 to be in play. It seems glamorous. It seems like a clunkier build of, like, Bulu from the past. It feels like Bulu with more steps, basically. So I'm kind of put off. You need to attach on 1. You need to hit your Candy on 2 and attach on 2 and find your stage 1 on top of your stage 2 this time to do 280, and sometimes there's not even 3 prizes in play for you to like deal with. The upside is when you're not against fire stuff, you are pretty tanky, and that's going to be annoying for like Zacian players and stuff. VMAXs are actually eventually going to push Zacian out the meta, probably, because Zacian's cap is actually pretty low. So Zacian's dominating right now because the tag teams are still dominating. Once we start seeing more and more VMAXs actually become a relevant part of the meta, like the Bucket and this Rillaboom trying to push VMAXs a bit more, you'll start to see the mediocrity of Zacian's damage eventually. But I don't think this is the card that starts pushing it out by any means. We have an Appleton that has the ability Delicious Scent. Once during a turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, choose one of your opponent's benched basics and switch it with the active. So, not quite the most reliable of Gust. It's not exactly Ninetales, but it is universal. And it's only limited to basics. But normally that's not a problem for you. You're normally trying to pick up Dedenes or Jirachis or Zacians or whatever else. You can hit Vs and GXs with this. Is it ever worth committing a 1-1 line or even a 2/2 line of Appleton to your deck over just playing Pokemon Catcher? No. So, yeah. Fun times to be had, but no. The only upside of having this like on your board instead is like if you're again playing like Turnfield or something, and then you don't need to commit as many spaces if you do just play like the 1/1 line. But it's just unreliable Gust anyways, so yeah, I don't like it. Ninetales, if your opponent's active has an ability, yeah, we don't care about that. We're never going to tack that into our decks, even though we already played Vulpix and Ninetales in a lot of fire decks. That's not worth tacking in. We have this Arcanine, so yeah, this is the guy that works with Burning Scarf. He becomes a 230 hit point stage 1, which is pretty yucky, right? But 130 is terrible damage. That is terrible damage. Yeah, that's not worth it at all. You could try making like a mixture of both Arcanines, but that's trying too hard for no payoff, really. We have a Cinderace V, so you can... So these are all the Tim promos, right? These I should have mentioned earlier with the Rillaboom. This is the same as the Tim promos that are currently out now. I think they've only just been released. So yeah, if there's a stadium, this guy's free retreat. That's nice. It has some good synergy with like you playing Jirachis and stuff and getting stuff going, which is always nice. It's a great ability. Whenever you can get some free retreat going, that's great. And obviously fire decks want to play a bunch of stadiums because there's Hearth and Heat Factory available. 140 for 3 is okay. Let's see what the VMAX does. Counter, you do 30, and you do damage equal to the amount of damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent during your opponent's last turn. That's actually pretty poor, right? Because a lot of the time, it's going to be the previous turn, so they have to have hit you for less than 210 a lot of the time, unless you're just sat with this like in the active passing into someone, which seems terrible. So they've probably only hit you for like 180 or so. So this counter isn't actually that good, and doing 190 or 170 in the burn for 3 energy is just super inefficient for fire decks. I mean, you're competing with some of the best attackers in the game right now, so Cinderace seems bad as well. We have a Galarian, Mr. Mime, and Rhyme. As long as this Pokemon is in play, prevent all effects of attacks done to all of your Pokemon with energy attached to them. Interesting. I don't think there's that many detrimental effects of attacks right now that we need to be super concerned about, but this is a nice card to just have in the game. It's a stage 1, which is a little awkward, but it's a nice card to just have in the binder here and there if there are going to be some disgusting effects coming out at any point. We have a Gyarados, which looks like bulk. We have the Inteleon V, so again, this is in the tin. A 40 snipe for 1. Denying Dittos, but not much else. Maybe some small synergy if you want to play, like, Intel Goons or something like that, you know? And then you do 130 for 3, and your opponent reveals the hand. Who cares? And here's Inteleon VMAX. So is this going to be better or worse than Lapras? That's all we have to worry about. They share the same weakness, which is a big problem. They have similar hit points. For 1 energy, you do 60, and you can return an energy from your opponent's active to their hand. Can be annoying at points, but never that detrimental. And then you have Grand Bullet, which does for 3 water, well, 2 water and a colorless. You do 160 and a 60 snipe to one of your opponent's bench. So for 3 energy, it probably means you got to have the Moth going. There's no other acceleration we can really use right now. So you can't really fit anything like Goon Squad, like I was thinking earlier, to make the snipes better. So the 60 snipe to an opponent's bench, like that's actually a super relevant number. 60 is a good number. That denies a lot of basics. Super close to dealing with like Jirachis and stuff. So if you actually had the space for this with Goons, it would be pretty dope. But you just don't have the... Because of the lack of acceleration for Intel VMAX right now, or the fact that you have to play Frosmoth, means you don't have space for the other stuff. So this card is like close to being good. Like this is OP Night Spear when you think about it. It's 160 and a 60 snipe with this sort of hit points. That's super tempting. It's actually more like Darkrai Umbreon, right? That's what it's like. And Darkrai Umbreon's doing terribly right now. Okay, I've been fully put off. Perfect. Okay, we've got Cramorant. He's not doing much, right? 50 plus 20 for each water. That's not going to be a big deal. Maybe it contests as a 1 prize option in a Frosmoth deck, possibly. What else we got? We got some Barrascuda action. That's not doing a lot. Discard 2 water from your hand or it does nothing. 130 for 1's interesting, but it's kind of like the old... It's like the new age Golduck. Who remembers that Golduck? What set was that from? Breakpoint or Breakthrough? Yeah, that card was pretty poor. Alright, we've got Heliolisk. That's terrible. Charjabug. Search your deck for 2 lightning energy. Attach them to this guy. No, that's not going to work. We have a Vikavolt, and we have to remember we still have the good Charjabug, you know, so this Vikavolt could be easy to power up. You do 60 plus 20 more times the amount of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. That is potentially a dangerous attack, actually. We know Lightning has some good acceleration going on. The Charjabugs themselves are good acceleration. This can be a user of Twin Energy as well, don't forget, so that's actually pretty interesting. It'll be a lot of work to get this guy set up, but there's probably some weird, like, Lurbal combo shenanigans that you can do to try and make the Vikavolt smacking quite nicely. And you have E-Power as well, so this probably hits pretty hard. We have a Boltund V. You get to search your deck for 2 lightning energy, attach them to your benched Pokemon in any way that you like, then shuffle your deck. So that's the turn 2 full blitz, no matter what, if you just want to use Boltund to do it, and then you don't have to put down a bunch of Denes and combo off. You can just attach to a Boltund and electrify. And then you do Lightning Storm, 10 plus 30 more for each lightning attached to all of your Pokemon in play. So it's kind of like a mini version of this Vikavolt, right? You're just trying to get a bunch of energies into play. 30 multiplier is not bad. We've seen the 30 multiplier on Rayquaza, so the Bolt is the new Rayquaza of the game, and it comes with its own Electrify. It does have E-powers. This is probably going to surprise people, the amount of damage it can actually do. I mean, it's a lot to try and contest with something like Pikarom, and competing with like Coco V and stuff like that is actually hard work, but this is an interesting card. Possibly we could see some lightning decks coming out of this set that are like, no, you're just Boltund and Coco V based now, and you just try and be too pricey. Because Coco V is super close to being good enough on his own with the amount of acceleration that we have, but it's just like just a little too slow, or like just requires a little bit too much. So spending 1 turn using Boltund V to power up a Coco V, or like 2 Coco Vs, to see you through the rest of the game isn't actually that bad. So I'm a decent fan of Boltund. I think he's a pretty good card. Certainly potential there to try and build around him as well. We have a Toxtricity. 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. The opponent's active is now Poison, so it's a stage 1 version of Coco. That's a lot. That's pretty bad. Just immediately. You get Poison, but who cares? Xatu is pretty poor as well. We have this Galarian Cursula. This has been revealed a while ago. I think it was the first card revealed from VMAX Rising, right? It's a 100 hit point psychic type that has Perish Body. If this Pokemon is your active and is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. It is the new Fainting Spell card. There's been plenty of these in the past, and they've always found a way to be annoying. It has a 2 retreat cost. We have Air Balloon in the format. There's also Spell Tag if you want to go even harder on this. We have some decent hit and run in the format. This card seems really, really gross. It does compete with Lily's Pokédoll. So there is that going against it. How good Pokédoll is, and that this is a stage 1 that takes up space. But this is going to be a super grim card to play against. I already know that I'm going to be super triggered by that card whenever I come up against a Morpeko or any other hit and run stuff. So yeah, that Cursula is really annoying. You can also just do its own attack, which is Corner for 60, and the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So if you want to try and make like Cursula Squids or something like that, just to get the Psychic and Colorless attachment going, you can just play this with spell tags and other bits and bobs here and there, but it's probably just going to work as a pivot into this guy kind of thing. Yeah, annoying card. That's a real treat for the game. We have Indeedee, that's pretty poor. We have Dreepy, not doing a lot. Dracloak searching for a Dreepy, that's pretty poor. We have this Stage 2 Dragapult, 150 hit point, Psychic type, Stage 2 that's weak to Dark. So it's actually really good to be a Psychic type that's weak to Dark. You'll see that with the Dragapult VMAX when we talk about it tomorrow. I'm actually hyped by that card. But for now, we have this ability Infiltrator. If this Pokemon would be damaged by an attack, flip a coin. If heads, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon. Where have we heard that before? It's now a 1 prize Whimsicott. Why have they done this? Oh man, they've turned Whimsicott into a 1 prize version. Oh, that's so gross. Okay. And Ghost Dive does 120 and put 3 counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way that you like. That's actually super good as well. The amount of control you get with those damage counter placements, especially with Spell Tag on top of that, every turn that you flip heads, oh my god, that's so much value. That's so much value. I think this card is good. Even though it's got that awkward 2 energy attack cost, even though it's a Stage 2. Free Retreat as well, just for no reason. You're just given Free Retreat. Like, that's just yours to keep, that is. Man, this is an annoying card. Yeah, like, we know Whimsicott didn't really work, but the coin flip is way... Like, you're forcing your opponent to flip more coins in general when you're playing the Dragapult deck, which is a big plus, because the game is naturally longer as 1 prizes, so you have more opportunities to cheese a turn out of people, which is, like, already very good. And you're a Psychic type, which is also just beneficial for the Ball Search options and the spell tags and other synergies that you have available to you as well. It means you can use Baby Blown. It means you can use Mimikyu. You can use all these sorts of things just teched into the list naturally. So, yeah, that Dragapult sounds dangerous. Another, like, boring, snoring card, but there you go. That seems, yeah, super lame to play against. Alright. We have a Sirfetch'd doing 180 for 3. That's pretty poor. We have Barbaracle. That's not doing a lot either. All very slow. We have a Sandaconda V. You can do 30 and attach a Fighting Energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. That's actually a pretty decent tempo with the amount of additions you can put onto fighting types. You've obviously still got Diancie. You've got Vitality Band. You've got Dojo. There's a few things that this can force us into... actually decent numbers early on. I've seen the same thing with Stonejourner, basically. And then you do 220 with Sand Breath and discard 2 energy from this guy. Ugh, that discard is painful for an archetype like Fighting, where you don't have that much good energy recovery. So this just feels like a worse Stonejourner, really. We have Phalanx. You can call for family, search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. Then for 2 colors, you do 30 for each Pokemon on your bench with Phalanx in its name. So this is meant to be the new version of Persimmon, I guess. But you are capped at 90. That's pretty bad. Yeah, 90 is not impressing anyone these days. Yeah, that's pretty poor. Okay. Alright. We've got Skuntank, that's doing nothing. We've got a Grimmsnarl, which is Stage 2. 170 hit point, weak to Grass. Has the ability Dark Limitation, as long as this Pokemon is your active. Your opponent's active pays 1 colorless more to use its attacks. So it's a Stage 2 version of Aerodactyl's ability, basically. And we have Energy Press, that seems to have synergy. You do 130 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active. So there's synergy there, but man, that's an expensive attack cost, and the ability does slow the opponent down, but not nearly enough for it to be a big deal. Bronzong, you do 70, hit and run, and your opponent also has to switch out their active. This is got to be worse than Morpeko, right? 70 is not great. You can try and buff this with Berserker to be a 1 prize hit and run guy. That sounds like a lot of work. Alright, we've got Aegislash, big shield as long as this Pokemon's in play. Any damage done to your Pokemon by opponent's attack is reduced by 30. You can't use more than 1 big shield. So it's like a universal... What's it called? Not Lurantis, it's the big one. Leavanny? It's like a universal Leavanny, right? Still a lot of work. Reducing 30 is actually a big deal, but I don't foresee people just jamming stage 2s at the moment just for bench sitting purposes. Alright, we've got a Duraludon. You can do 110 for 3. Always got to look at the metal stuff because they can be patched onto. They can do all this other stuff. Metal Sharpener does 30 and attach a metal from your discard to one of your Pokemon. You can do some early game prods, which isn't a bad thing. But let's be real, if you're ADP-zation, you're committing your early attachments to ADP, right? I mean, I guess you could Sharpener onto an ADP, but it's just more steps. I don't like more steps, I like less steps. Less steps is better. Alright, we have a Diggersby, discard up to 6 cards from the top of your deck, 30 for each card you discarded. Oh boy, Diggersby though. So you can 180 people. Pretty bad, right? You don't want to discard 6 cards off the top of your own deck, I'm pretty sure. People are going to tell me you can play this and Excadrill, but again, you know. Alright, Holucha doing some setup stuff, and then our last card is a Dubwool V with the ability Soft Wool. Damage done to this Pokemon is reduced by 30. Okay, so you're pretty tanky. You're essentially a 240 hit point basic, which is just insane to think about already. You have Revenge Burst, 120 plus 30 more for each prize card your opponent has taken for 3 colorless. It's not the worst. I mean, it's well durable. It's like it's got all the accelerations open to it. It's not the worst card I've ever seen. It's also like quite durable and tanky for like a 2-prizer, so I can see it possibly being like one of those techs. This has the feel of like a Cramorant where it's not actually like that strong, but like you can just see it being that one-of tech coming into decks, and you can't really question people for it because there are moments in games where it can be decent. So its damage can get pretty reasonable in the late game. So yeah, I can see Dubwool V going into, you know, a couple decks. I don't really think it goes into like Abilitizard though, which would be its natural like first thought just because of Welder. So maybe it's just below the bar. Overall then, what have we found? Twin Energy is great going forward and is going to be pretty nutty. Turffield is going to go with that Rillaboom deck. Don't know how consistent it's going to be, and Fire's still going to keep it down. Even though there's only one good water card so far from this set, it pushes the Moth quite a lot. We have this super annoying 2 psychic Pokemon, Dragapult and Cursula. Those seem like 2 of the best Pokemon from the set. Boltund V looks actually pretty good to me. What else are we looking at? Yeah, not a lot. The possibility of the new Bulu coming into town, but I'm very skeptical of a Stage 2 plus Stage 1 3-prize deck weak to fire. Something like that just doesn't sit well with me right now. You don't have good early tempo, and you need a lot to go right for this to be a good deck, right? So, yeah, let me know your thoughts on this mini set, the VMAX Rising. What are you excited for? Has it changed your outlook on any of the decks that you're currently playing or looking to play in the future? I'll hear it all down below, and stay tuned tomorrow for an update on Rebellious Clash, my first impressions. Thanks for watching, guys.